Hey, I am back with my July plan with me. So I'm going to jump right in considering how late I am as to posting this. So first and foremost, I need something that inspires me because I have absolutely no idea what I want to do for this month. So last month I did things for my birthday month that made me feel inspired aesthetically. This month I am focusing on my washi tapes because I haven't used those in a while and I've got plenty to use. So I am starting off with 2 washi tapes. One is a marble and the other one is like a teal turquoise geometric pattern. I just kind of felt like they complemented each other because one is super fluid and the other one's super structured. And I just kind of like the way that they meshed. It felt right. It felt structured but artsy at the same time. So what I'm doing is I'm putting down my swatches to make sure that they kind of blend the way that I want them to, and then it's a matter of finding a marker that matches that turquoise. I do have a lot of the Crayola Super Tips, so I've got lots of colors to choose from, but it's just a matter of swatching, seeing what matches, what doesn't. So I usually go through about 3 or 4 of these before I find the one that I feel matches the best. And as I go through, I usually hold the ones that I feel are pretty close. And if not, I put them back in the basket. So it's just a matter of trial and error. And then once I find the one that I feel matches the best, I try to find something a little complimentary. That way I can have more than one color going on to make it feel real well-rounded. So I decided I wanted to go for like a peachy pinky tone for almost like a retro feel, like a 50s diner, but more modern and updated. Then it's a matter of how I'm going to combine them. So I don't normally color my pages in. I don't have a lot of color swatches. I'm very limited on how I use my colors, so I was trying to plan out how I would combine them and how I would implement them in my monthly plan with me. And then I kind of circle the ones that I feel work and how I want to do them. This is just kind of like my brain dump for the month. That way everything's in one spot. Normally I plan the month before, but this time I had no idea what I wanted to do, so I waited until the very last minute. So for my monthly plan with me's, I pretty much always pencil out my numbers and everything and where I want everything. So that way when I go on with pen, I don't make too many mistakes. Although you will see later on, I did something very last minute and it bit me in the butt, but I found a way to fix it. So normally I don't have my monthly in a calendar form like this. I usually just do the 1 through 30 or 1 through 31 like the normal bullet journal theory suggests. But this time I decided I wanted to see how it looks in a calendar view because I feel like I'm missing that. I don't like a big calendar with blocks because it just feels like wasted space to me, but I did want some kind of calendar view. So then I go in and I color in my weekends. That way I can see where the week starts and the week ends on my vertical view, which pale colors like this are probably one of my favorite ways to do that. And then it's just a matter of going in and filling in my numbers, which normally I do it in 5s in pencil. That way I don't have to erase all 30 numbers. So I'll do 1, 5, 10, 15, and so on and so forth. So that way I know I'm on track, but I don't have a lot to erase. And as you can see, I leave a lot of room over to the left. Normally that's where I put like either trackers or important events like birthdays. But this time I actually decided I didn't want to do that on my monthly view. I wanted to do my trackers on a week-by-week basis. That way I don't look at it and go, well, I did good for most of the month, and then just give up for the second half of the month, which is exactly what happened in June. So I've decided to kind of trick myself into being more productive and more consistent with my patterns. So here I'm trying something new. You see I put the washi tape down and then wrote July over it. So I'm actually going to peel that up and kind of fill it in with another July. So kind of like a negative space. I don't think I've ever done this before, but I actually really like the way that it turned out. It definitely was a lot better than I expected it to be, and it was very much a on a whim decision. And if you can see, I've got my drink off to the side. It's my absolute favorite Orange Crush. So, and then here you can really see what I mean when I talk about why certain washi tapes are great and some aren't. Some tear straight and others tend to tear at an angle, which is what I cover up with that turquoise, because it just, that washi tape's not my favorite. It's pretty, but doesn't always work. And then on the right, I always have my budget. My budget stays consistent throughout the month, so I always copy mine from my format in the beginning of my bullet journal, which if you watch my bullet journal transfer migration, then you'll see where I have that in the beginning. And that's just where I go and copy and paste, because I always pay even amounts on my bills and I always over budget. That way I can always stay ahead. And sometimes it's nice to just add a couple little flourishes on your words just to kind of make them feel a little more established, especially if you're using markers. I know I have in the past where I've just written it in the marker and done nothing else with it, and it just feels almost undone, like it's not finished. It just needs those little tweaks to feel like it's part of the page and was intentional and not a last minute, oh, let me scribble this title in. So as you will see, I do these little dashes off to the right next to my budget, and that is so I can mark when I have established or scheduled a payment, which is with 1/, and then the second half of an X marks when it comes out of the account. One color is for one pay week and the other color is for the following. So here I went pretty rogue. I didn't keep with the format or font that I'd initially decided on for my headers, and I actually added in some boxes and a few other things that I wasn't planning on doing. Normally I just have an entire page for groceries and I kind of go from there, but I've learned that just because you have a whole page to use doesn't necessarily mean you need the whole page, because it usually ends up looking really empty. So this time I decided to give myself an actual more structured format, where I've got it a box for my groceries and I make it feel a little more crafty almost. It's got more personality to it rather than just a plain old ugly grocery list. And then on the right, I have my packing list for our trip to Ocean City this month. And this one, again, I went super rogue on. So you can see I originally had 4 squares. That way I could list what I need to pack. But as you'll see, I ended up doing vertical columns rather than those squares, just because I usually keep my handwriting pretty small, so I feel like I can fit more items in there and make it look a lot more clean and structured if it was a vertical list rather than squares, because I don't like when you have to have 2 columns for the same category. It just, I don't know, it feels sloppy to me. I'm super particular about things like that. And then right here, this is when you're going to see me referring back to my my cheat sheet for columns and such. I'm looking for the 1/4 category. That way I can change it from those square boxes to vertical lists. That way I know that they're evenly spaced and I don't have to count the page and divide it again and do that 100 times a day. So this just makes it a little bit more convenient. That way you don't have to keep doing your math over and over and over again every time you try and do a page setup. where I'm starting to plan my first weekly of the month. So I check my calendar overview to see how many days I need to plan for the month. And then I have squared it off into 2 columns and 3 rows. So that way I can fit in the first 5 days and then a space for my trackers. And instead of using marker here or using one of my my Sigma pens for boxing them off, I decided to do it with some washi tape, just to make it feel a little more artsy, a little more colorful, and a little more happy. Usually the first week of the month is rough, especially with work. We have a lot going on the first day of the month, closing out the previous month. So I like to have that first week really colorful, really fun, just to kind of give me something upbeat to look at when I'm making my lists and making sure that my personal life is staying organized when my work life is super hectic. Now, this is the page where I completely went rogue. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to put on this page, and last minute I decided to kind of, I'm not even sure how to explain it. It's not necessarily set goals, but kind of goals and an overview towards the end of the month. That way I can look back on it. And this is where things get crazy. Because I didn't spell out in pencil what I was going to write, I kept forgetting what I was planning on spelling. And just butchering it. So I decided to go over it and just kind of color it in with that marker. And then I'm going to go back over it in my Sigma pen in black to actually write what I was intending to write. And that's just kind of a quick fix, especially if you're writing in marker. You can always just cover it up and go over it in a different pen or another marker that's a different color. Even if you're coloring something over with a black, or you're writing in a black pen, you can always make a black splotch and then write over it in a white Jelly Roll pen. Alright guys, thanks for joining me for my super late July plan with me. Here's my flip through, and I hope I provided you with some kind of inspiration. I'll see you next time.